humanity had long been underestimated by the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. For eons, the Terrans were seen as primitive, fragile creatures with no place in the grand schemes of cosmic empires. But those empires did not understand what lay at the heart of humanity. The Terrans had something that no other species could claim, a relentless drive to survive, evolve, and conquer any obstacle that stood in their way. And it was this drive that would lead them to the ultimate evolution. It all began when the first contact was made with the Arthralex, a species from a distant star system. The Arthralex were an ancient race, their technology far surpassing anything humanity had achieved at the time. They were a proud species, unaccustomed to the idea of any race challenging their superiority. When they first encountered the humans, they dismissed them as insignificant, barely worth their time. At first, the humans had no intention of challenging the Arthralex. Their focus was on expanding their own civilization, exploring new worlds, and learning as much as possible about the universe. But the Arthralex were not content to simply observe. They saw the Terrans as an easy target, a race they could manipulate for their own purposes. They sought to subjugate humanity, to bend them to their will. What the Arthralex did not know was that the Terrans were not as weak as they appeared. When the Arthralex initiated their first attack, humanity fought back with a ferocity that none of their attackers had expected. It was not just technology or strategy that made the Terrans dangerous, it was their adaptability. Every setback became a lesson, every defeat a stepping stone toward eventual victory. In the midst of the conflict, an extraordinary human scientist, Dr. Elena Maris, uncovered something that would change the course of history forever. She discovered an ancient Terran artifact buried deep beneath the surface of a long-forgotten world. The artifact was not just a relic, it was a key to unlocking the potential of the human race. The artifact contained genetic blueprints, dormant for millennia, that could accelerate human evolution at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Maris knew the implications of her discovery. She immediately set to work, decoding the artifact's secrets and developing a way to activate its power. As humanity fought their war against the Arthralex, the first tests of the artifact's potential began. Volunteers were injected with a serum derived from the artifact's genetic code. The results were staggering. The first few volunteers experienced rapid physical and mental changes. Their strength, agility, and intelligence grew exponentially. They were able to perceive the world around them in ways that were previously impossible for ordinary humans. They could process information faster, make decisions with unparalleled accuracy, and their physical bodies could heal from wounds at an extraordinary rate. But this was just the beginning. The volunteers began to exhibit abilities that went beyond what anyone could have imagined. Some could manipulate energy, others could communicate telepathically, and a select few developed the ability to control the very fabric of reality itself. These evolved humans, dubbed the hyperhumans, were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They became the spearhead of humanity's war against the Arthralex. The Terrans, once seen as weak and insignificant, now held the power to stand toe-to-toe with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The hyperhumans led the charge, striking at the heart of the Arthralex Empire. Their strength and abilities shattered the Arthralex's once imposing military forces, and their relentless determination tore down the walls of the Arthralex's proud civilization. As the war raged on, more and more humans underwent the transformation. The effects were not without cost, however. The transformation was dangerous, and not all who underwent the procedure survived. Yet, for every life lost, there were countless others willing to take the risk, driven by the desire to see their species rise above the rest of the galaxy. The transformation was no longer a secret, humanity embraced their new abilities, and the once downtrodden race became a force to be reckoned with. With each battle, the Terrans grew stronger, their unity becoming unshakable. They were no longer a species defined by their fragility or their lack of advanced technology. The ultimate evolution of the Terran race was upon them, and they would stop at nothing to see it through to the end. As the war with the Arthralex escalated, the Terrans' newfound power was not without its consequences. The hyperhumans had grown increasingly formidable, but so too had their dependence on the genetic modifications. While their abilities granted them almost godlike power, there was a dark side to the transformation. The serum, derived from the ancient artifact, was not perfect. It had unpredictable side effects. Dr. Elena Maris, who had once celebrated her discovery, now found herself caught in a moral dilemma. The more she observed the evolution of humanity, the more she realized that the transformation came at a cost. While the hyperhumans were capable of extraordinary feats, they were also losing something fundamental. Some began to experience severe psychological breakdowns. Others lost their sense of self, becoming disconnected from the very humanity they had once fought to protect. The serum was altering their minds, bending their wills toward a singular purpose: victory. But it was not just the hyperhumans who were affected. As humanity's war against the Arthrolex intensified, the rest of the human population started to feel the strain. The planet Earth, once a thriving cradle of civilization, had been transformed into a war machine. Resources were drained at an alarming rate, and the very ecosystem of the planet began to suffer. The long-term effects of the war, combined with the rapid evolution of the Terran race, threatened to destabilize everything humanity had built. In the midst of these growing tensions, Dr. Maris and a team of trusted scientists made a startling discovery. The artifact that had unlocked humanity's ultimate evolution was not just a source of power, it was a creation of an even more ancient race. The remnants of this race, known as the Precursors, had long since vanished from the galaxy, leaving behind only fragments of their knowledge. The artifact, as it turned out, was part of a much larger plan. The Precursors had once been the rulers of the galaxy, their power unmatched by any species. But in their quest for ultimate control, they had created a dangerous cycle of evolution. They had manipulated the genetics of countless races, pushing them to evolve faster and faster until they reached a breaking point. The Terran race was now following in their footsteps, on the cusp of the same destruction that had befallen the Precursors. With this new knowledge in hand, Dr. Maris knew that the only way for humanity to survive and thrive was to find a way to halt the process of forced evolution. The hyperhumans, though powerful, could not be allowed to dominate the galaxy without understanding the true cost of their power. And the rest of humanity could not be allowed to suffer the consequences of an evolution they were not ready for. But this discovery did not come without danger. The Arthrolex, ever the opportunists, had been watching humanity's progress closely. They knew that if humanity unlocked the full potential of the artifact, they would become an unstoppable force. Desperate to prevent this, the Arthrolex launched a full-scale assault on Earth itself. Their fleets arrived in force, overwhelming the human defenses in a matter of hours. In the chaos that followed, Dr. Maris and her team were forced to go into hiding. The artifact, the key to humanity's ultimate evolution, was now in the hands of the enemy. The Terrans, though resilient and adaptive, were not prepared for this new assault. As Earth fell to the Arthrolex, the hyperhumans were scattered across the galaxy, forced into exile. The war had reached a turning point, and humanity's survival was no longer guaranteed. The future of the Terran race now hung in the balance, as their evolution faced the ultimate test. Would they rise again and find a way to regain control of their destiny, or would they fall victim to the same destructive cycle that had consumed the Precursors long before them? In the darkest hour, a lone voice emerged, a voice from within the ranks of the hyperhumans. A leader who had once stood alongside Dr. Maris in the fight against the Arthrolex now found himself questioning everything. He had witnessed firsthand the toll the evolution had taken on his comrades, and he had seen the depths of destruction it had wrought. Yet, he could not ignore the promise of a better future, one where humanity could transcend the cycle of violence and evolution. As the universe watched with bated breath, the fate of the Terran race rested in the hands of those who had been transformed by the very power that could either save or doom them. The fall of Earth to the Arthrolex was a devastating blow to humanity, but it was far from the end. In the aftermath of the catastrophic assault, the hyperhumans scattered across the galaxy, each retreating to their own corners of the cosmos. They had been reduced to a broken, disjointed force, and their once unshakable unity was now fractured. The Arthrolex, triumphant and confident in their victory, began their occupation of Earth, determined to eliminate any trace of the Terran resistance. But in the shadows of the galaxy, a spark of hope remained. The hyperhumans were not alone in their struggle. Among the scattered survivors were those who had never undergone the transformation, those who had fought alongside the hyperhumans but had remained unaffected by the serum. These humans, though less powerful, were still driven by the same indomitable will to survive and protect their people. They knew that the fight was far from over and that humanity's true strength lay not in their enhanced abilities, but in their unyielding spirit. One such group of survivors, led by a former military officer named Marcus Kane, had managed to escape the Arthrolex's grasp. They had retreated to the farthest reaches of human-controlled space, to a remote planet that had once been a research outpost. The planet, known as Elysium, had been abandoned for decades, left to decay after the Terran Empire had moved on to other ventures. But now, it was their last refuge, a place to regroup and formulate a plan to reclaim Earth. Marcus Kane was not a hyperhuman, but his leadership had earned him the respect of both the transformed and untransformed humans who had survived. He knew the odds were stacked against them, but he also knew that humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to adapt and persevere. It was time to regroup, to heal, and to prepare for the war to come. Among his ranks was a small group of former scientists who had worked under Dr. Elena Maris. They had been part of the team that uncovered the secrets of the artifact, and now, they were the only ones who fully understood the potential and the dangers it held. They had long been working on a way to reverse the effects of the serum, to create a cure that could return the hyperhumans to their original state and restore balance to humanity. They knew that the key to humanity's survival was not to rely on the power of the artifact, but to unlock the potential of their species without succumbing to the same destructive cycle that had destroyed the precursors. But even as Marcus and his team worked tirelessly on their plan, they knew that time was running out. The Arthrolex were strengthening their hold on Earth, using the planet as a base from which to launch further conquests across the galaxy. They were relentless, and their forces were growing by the day. The hyperhumans, scattered and divided, were in no position to challenge the Arthrolex directly. It was in this time of desperation that the leader of the hyperhumans, a man known as Adam Vale, made a fateful decision. Adam had once been one of the most powerful of the transformed, a symbol of humanity's ultimate evolution. But he had seen the toll the transformation had taken on his comrades, the loss of their humanity in the pursuit of power. He had come to believe that the only way forward was to abandon the artifact and the serum entirely, to start anew. Adam Vale reached out to Marcus Kane, knowing that the only way to defeat the Arthrolex was to unite humanity once more. The plan was simple, but it was dangerous. Adam would return to Earth and confront the Arthrolex directly, using his knowledge of the artifact's power to infiltrate their ranks. At the same time, Marcus and his team would continue their work on reversing the effects of the transformation, hoping to restore the humanity that had been lost in the pursuit of power. The stakes were higher than ever. The galaxy watched as humanity's two greatest leaders, one a former soldier, the other a former superhuman, began their collaboration, each knowing that the outcome of their efforts would determine the fate of the Terran race. Would they rise from the ashes of their defeat, united by a common purpose, or would they fall victim to the same hubris that had consumed the precursors before them? As Adam Vale prepared for his dangerous mission, he looked to the stars. He knew that the future of humanity would not be defined by their strength, but by their ability to adapt and evolve without losing their humanity. The ultimate evolution of the Terran race was not about power, it was about survival, unity, and the will to change. And it was in this moment that humanity's true test would begin. With the fate of Earth, and the galaxy, hanging in the balance, the next chapter of humanity's journey would be written in the fires of conflict, sacrifice, and the hope that they could overcome the mistakes of their past. The war for Earth had reached its critical juncture. The Arthrolex, confident in their dominance, continued to tighten their grip on the planet. Their forces had established strongholds across major cities, quashing any remaining resistance with brutal efficiency. It seemed as though humanity's struggle was nearing its end. But in the depths of the galactic shadows, a spark of defiance still burned. Marcus Kane and his group on Elysium had made significant progress. The scientists working under Dr. Elena Maris had finally perfected the formula to reverse the hyperhuman transformation, though it was not without its risks. The process required the extraction of the artifact's influence from the DNA of the transformed humans, and the procedure was dangerous. Success would mean restoring the original humanity of the hyperhumans, but failure could lead to irreversible damage or death. While the work on Elysium was advancing, Adam Vale was preparing for his mission. His decision to infiltrate the Arthrolex forces on Earth was not one he took lightly. His enhanced abilities, once a source of power, had now become his greatest weakness. He knew that to truly defeat the Arthrolex, he had to rely not on his power, but on his mind, his humanity. The serum that had granted him near godlike abilities had also stripped away much of what had once made him human. He could feel the toll it had taken. His emotions, his relationships, even his sense of self were no longer as they once had been. Adam's plan was risky. He would return to Earth, pretending to be an ally to the Arthrolex. His knowledge of the artifact and its capabilities would allow him to gain access to the heart of the Arthrolex's operations. There, he would gather critical intelligence and sabotage their efforts from within. But this plan hinged on the Arthrolex's belief in the Terrans' need for power. They underestimated Adam's true goal. He was not there to fight with brute force. He was there to dismantle the very foundation of their control, to strike at the heart of their empire. As Adam prepared for his journey, Marcus Kane received a distress signal from a network of Terran resistance cells still operating on Earth. Despite the overwhelming power of the Arthrolex, small pockets of humanity had managed to survive, using guerrilla tactics to disrupt the invaders. Their message was clear: humanity was not ready to surrender. There was still a chance to fight back, to reclaim the planet. The discovery reignited something deep within Marcus Kane. He knew that the success of Adam's mission, combined with the work on Elysium, could give humanity the chance it needed. But time was running out. The Arthrolex had begun constructing a massive weapon, one that could destroy entire star systems with a single blow. This weapon, called the obelisk, was being built under Earth's crust. If completed, it would give the Arthrolex a strategic advantage they could use to wipe out all of humanity in an instant. Marcus knew the stakes had never been higher. With Adam's mission in motion and the progress on Elysium's cure advancing, the time had come for humanity's final push. They could not afford to wait any longer. The Terran resistance cells would coordinate a series of strikes to weaken the Arthrolex's control, while Adam worked from within to sabotage their operations. If they could destroy the obelisk before it was completed, humanity would have a fighting chance to reclaim Earth. Adam Vale's return to Earth was marked by a brutal clash with the Arthrolex's outer defenses. His infiltration had been a success, but not without cost. The Arthrolex had already begun to suspect his true intentions, and their response was swift. He had to move quickly, disabling key communication networks to prevent the Arthrolex from calling in reinforcements. The once confident leader of the hyperhumans now found himself in a race against time, unable to trust even his own mind, let alone his abilities. The serum's influence still clouded his judgment, but his determination kept him focused. On the surface, the Terran resistance launched their first coordinated strike in years. Marcus Kane led the charge, coordinating with rebel cells to hit the Arthrolex where they least expected it. They attacked key supply lines, sabotaged weapon caches, and disrupted the Arthrolex's communication systems. Though their numbers were small, their spirit was undeniable. With each successful operation, their morale soared. The Arthrolex were no longer unchallenged. The Terrans had proven they could fight back. As Adam's mission neared its climax, the resistance on Earth began to make significant strides. The obelisk, which had once seemed unstoppable, was now under threat. Humanity's final weapon, its will to survive, had become their greatest advantage. And in the deepest reaches of the galaxy, Marcus Kane and his allies on Elysium made one final breakthrough. The serum, the artifact, the very foundation of their evolution, had been decoded. It was time for the hyperhumans to make their choice. Would they embrace the transformation that had made them so powerful, or would they return to their roots and fight as humanity had always fought, through unity, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of their shared spirit? The battle for Earth had entered its final phase, and the ultimate evolution of the Terran race was about to be realized. Would humanity rise from the ashes of its defeat, or would the darkness of the Arthrolex Empire swallow them whole? The answer lay in the hearts of the Terran people and the leaders who had emerged from the depths of their struggle. It was no longer just a battle for survival, it was a battle for the soul of the human race. As the resistance forces on Earth gathered strength, the battle for humanity's survival entered its most critical phase. The Terran forces, though outmatched by the Arthrolex, had found a new edge: unity. The once scattered remnants of humanity, divided between those who had undergone the transformation and those who had resisted it, were now united under a single banner. The cure for the hyperhumans was nearly ready, but it came with its own challenges. Some had adapted to their new powers too well, and the thought of reverting to their former selves was a terrifying prospect. Others saw it as their only hope to regain the humanity they had lost in their evolution. Adam Vale, still within the Arthrolex stronghold, had completed his infiltration. His time was running out. He had gathered the intelligence needed to destroy the obelisk, but the Arthrolex had set a trap. They had anticipated his betrayal, and now they knew his true intentions. As the time for his extraction drew near, Adam's mind was torn between the power of his transformation and the desperate need to complete his mission. His body, still altered by the serum, screamed for the energy it had once craved, but his spirit fought back against it. The decision was agonizing, yet it was becoming clear that to save humanity, he had to sever his connection to the power that had made him what he was. Meanwhile, Marcus Kane, leading the resistance forces, knew the coming days would determine the fate of not only Earth but the entire galaxy. The obelisk, a weapon capable of wiping out entire star systems, was their primary target. The resistance had learned that its construction was nearly complete. If it fired, the Arthrolex would gain the ability to obliterate entire human colonies in an instant, further sealing their grip on the galaxy. The Terran strategy was simple but risky. They would launch a full-scale assault on the obelisk, using the last of their covert forces to infiltrate the facility, while the rest of humanity's combined fleets would storm the Arthrolex stronghold. The attack on the obelisk began as a coordinated strike, with resistance cells from every corner of Earth taking part. They hit the facility with everything they had, diverting the Arthrolex forces with guerrilla tactics, taking out power grids, and creating chaos within the enemy ranks. Despite the odds, the Terrans moved with the precision of a species that had learned from its mistakes and adapted. The battlefield was not just a place of war, it was a symbol of their refusal to give in. Each explosive burst and strategic strike was a testament to humanity's unyielding will. On the inside, Adam Vale was finally ready to make his move. He had fought to regain control of his mind and body, rejecting the artificial power the Arthrolex had believed would make him their greatest weapon. Now, he was a man torn between two worlds, the man he had been and the superhuman he had become. With his newfound clarity, Adam infiltrated the core of the obelisk's construction facility, planting the charges that would destroy it from the inside. The moment he triggered the detonation sequence, he knew there was no turning back. As the countdown began, the resistance outside launched their final push to capture the obelisk. The Arthrolex, desperate to prevent their annihilation, poured everything into defending the weapon. In the chaos that followed, a fierce battle broke out. Terran fighters engaged in a desperate struggle against the Arthrolex fleet. But Adam's sacrifice was the turning point. His detonation of the obelisk's core set off a chain reaction, causing the facility to collapse in a massive explosion. The weapon was destroyed, but so was much of the Arthrolex's military advantage on Earth. In the wake of the explosion, Adam was nowhere to be found. His final moments were a mystery to all, but his actions had been decisive. The obelisk was no more, and the Arthrolex's foothold on Earth was weakened. Marcus Kane, now in command of a united resistance, knew that the Terrans had gained the upper hand. Yet, the battle was not over. The Arthrolex, though shaken, would not give up without a fight. They would regroup, rebuild, and retaliate. But humanity had proven that it could adapt, that it could fight back against even the most overwhelming odds. The Terrans' victory in this battle was not just a victory of force, but of spirit. They had defeated an enemy far superior in technology and military might by embracing their unity and resilience. As Earth's surface turned to ash from the aftermath of the explosion, the remaining Arthrolex forces scrambled to recover. But it was clear that their empire was no longer invincible. Humanity had discovered its true strength, not just in their ability to evolve, but in their refusal to surrender. With the destruction of the obelisk, the final pieces of the Terran evolution had fallen into place. The transformation, once seen as humanity's greatest curse, had become their greatest gift. The hyperhumans, now freed from the artificial serum that had once controlled them, stood side by side with those who had never undergone the transformation. Humanity, united under one cause, was ready to rebuild, not just Earth, but their future in the galaxy. The battle for Earth was over, but the war against the Arthrolex was far from won. Yet, for the first time, humanity faced the future with confidence. They had been tested, broken, and rebuilt, and through it all, they had discovered the most essential part of their evolution, their ability to overcome, to adapt, and to rise stronger than ever before. The galaxy would never forget the Terrans, for they were no longer the weak, fragile creatures they had once been. They were the ultimate evolution, the survivors, the warriors, and the architects of their own destiny. The war for humanity's survival was far from over, but Earth was finally free from the grasp of the Arthrolex. The destruction of the obelisk had shifted the balance of power, yet the remnants of the Arthrolex Empire still posed a grave threat to the Terrans. The resistance had been victorious, but their victory was fragile. The cost had been immense, and as humanity emerged from the ashes, there was a new sense of urgency. The Terrans had won a battle, but the war was far from decided. Marcus Kane, now a leader of the unified Terran forces, understood that they could not afford to rest on their laurels. The Arthrolex were not a species to be underestimated. Their ability to rebuild, adapt, and strike back was legendary. Earth was liberated, but the rest of the galaxy remained under the shadow of the Arthrolex. The Terrans needed more than just a victory, they needed a way to ensure that the Arthrolex would never again pose a threat to them or any other species in the galaxy. On Elysium, the work of curing the hyperhumans was complete. The serum that had once transformed them into powerful beings had been fully reversed. The hyperhumans, now freed from the influence of the artifact, were no longer the weapons they had once been. They were human again, but they were also something more. The process had left its mark on them. They had seen what they could become, and now they had to reconcile their power with their humanity. The question that loomed over them was not what they had been, but what they could become. Their ultimate evolution, it seemed, was yet to be decided. The transformation had taught them all a harsh lesson: the pursuit of power, unchecked by wisdom and compassion, led to destruction. But now, with the influence of the artifact gone, they were free to choose their path. Some sought to return to their roots, to live as they once had, while others, inspired by their experiences, felt the need to reshape their future. The hyperhumans were no longer bound by the artifact's power, but they were still the next step in humanity's evolution. As the Terrans celebrated their hard-won freedom, Marcus Kane knew that the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than they had once realized. The Arthrolex may have been weakened, but they were not destroyed. There were still many of them, scattered across the galaxy, regrouping and preparing to retaliate. Their defeat on Earth had shaken them, but their thirst for domination had not been quenched. In the aftermath of the obelisk's destruction, the Terrans found themselves at a crossroads. The galaxy was vast, and the Arthrolex were not the only threat out there. Humanity had spent too long focusing on their own survival, their own struggle for power. Now, with their newfound strength, they could no longer ignore the rest of the galaxy. They had the potential to become the greatest force in the universe, but they needed to learn how to wield that power with wisdom and compassion. It was then that a new idea emerged from within the ranks of the Terran leaders. Instead of seeking to dominate the galaxy, the Terrans would seek to unite it. The galaxy was a fractured place, with species and empires locked in constant conflict. The Arthrolex had risen to power by exploiting these divisions, by conquering weaker civilizations and manipulating them for their own gain. The Terrans, however, would do things differently. They would not seek to rule with an iron fist. Instead, they would build alliances, foster peace, and offer a new vision for the future. This new path was not without its challenges. The Terrans had been shaped by centuries of war, and the idea of peace was a difficult one for many to embrace. There were still remnants of the old mindset, the belief that strength was the only currency that mattered. But Marcus Kane, having seen the devastation that unchecked power could bring, knew that this new vision was humanity's true calling. The first step toward this new future was the establishment of the Terran Coalition, an intergalactic alliance built on mutual respect, cooperation, and the understanding that all species, regardless of their strength or size, had a role to play in the galaxy's future. The Terrans would no longer be a species defined by their ability to fight and conquer. They would be known for their ability to unify, to heal, and to create a future where every species could thrive. As Marcus Kane addressed the assembled leaders of the Terran resistance, the weight of his words carried the hopes of a new era. We have seen what happens when power is allowed to consume us. We have seen the price of domination. But we have also seen what we are capable of when we come together. We will no longer be defined by our past. We will be the architects of a new future. A future where strength is tempered by wisdom, where unity is our greatest weapon. The Terran Coalition was born that day, and with it came the hope of a galaxy united in peace. The Arthralex, though weakened, were not finished yet. But the Terrans were no longer the same species that had once fought for survival. They were the next step in evolution, not just of the body, but of the mind and spirit. They had learned the greatest lesson of all: true power did not lie in domination, but in the ability to bring others together for the greater good. The galaxy would now watch as humanity, having fought its hardest battle, took its first steps toward building something greater than themselves, a unified galaxy where peace, not war, would reign. The ultimate evolution of the Terran race was not a destination, it was a journey. And the future was theirs to shape. The Terran Coalition had begun its work in earnest, and as the galaxy looked on, humanity's influence spread far beyond Earth. The first steps had been fraught with difficulty, as many species viewed the Terrans with suspicion. Their transformation, their rapid rise to power, and their violent past left many wondering if this new era was truly any different. The Arthralex, now a broken empire, still had pockets of resistance, and their leaders, though scattered, were eager for revenge. They had underestimated the strength of humanity before, but this time, the Terrans were different. They had learned the harsh lessons of their past, and they were determined to forge a new path. The newly formed Terran Coalition was not just a military alliance, it was an ideological one. Marcus Kane, now a figurehead of the movement, understood that to truly unite the galaxy, the Terrans would need to prove themselves through action, not just words. They had to demonstrate that their evolution had not only made them stronger, but wiser as well. The Terran Coalition began sending ambassadors and emissaries to distant star systems, offering peace and cooperation to those who had been ravaged by the Arthralex's reign. Some accepted, seeing the promise of a better future, while others rejected the offer, fearful of being consumed by the Terran might. The first true test of the Coalition's resolve came when a massive Arthralex fleet, led by a rogue faction of their former commanders, launched an attack on one of the peaceful systems that had joined the Coalition. The Terran fleets mobilized quickly, ready to defend their new allies, but Marcus Kane had other plans. He refused to let the Terrans fight this battle with brute force. They had to show the galaxy that their strength was not in their weapons, but in their ability to lead with compassion and understanding. Rather than engage the Arthralex in open combat, the Terran forces used their advanced technology and strategy to intercept the fleet before it reached the peaceful system. A fierce standoff ensued, with the Arthralex fleet demanding that the Terrans submit to their will or face destruction. It was a critical moment for the Coalition. If the Terrans responded with force, it could mean the end of their fragile alliance and the beginning of another galactic war. Marcus Kane, aboard the flagship of the Terran fleet, broadcasted a message to the Arthralex commanders. His voice was calm but firm, the weight of years of struggle and sacrifice behind every word. "We do not seek war," he said. "We have fought for too long, suffered too much, to throw it all away in the pursuit of more power. We offer you a choice: leave this system in peace, or face the consequences of continuing this madness. The time for destruction is over. The time for healing is now. The Arthrolex commanders, shocked by the Terran resolve and unwilling to risk another catastrophic defeat, hesitated. For the first time, they saw that humanity's ultimate evolution was not in their ability to destroy, but in their ability to choose peace, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. With a final, defiant retreat, the Arthrolex fleet withdrew, marking the first true victory of the Terran coalition through diplomacy and strength of character rather than weapons. This moment of triumph became a symbol for the galaxy. The Terrans had proven that they could lead with wisdom, that they could hold to their ideals even when tested by the greatest challenges. News of the Terran victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and many species that had once been hesitant to join the coalition now sought to align themselves with the humans. The Arthrolex, while still dangerous, were now seen as a relic of the past, and the future of the galaxy seemed to be shifting into the hands of the Terran people. But the road ahead was not without its challenges. Though the Terrans had shown their commitment to peace, they had made enemies along the way. There were those in the galaxy who feared the power the Terrans wielded. Some saw the coalition as a threat, a force that could dominate and reshape the galaxy according to their ideals. These factions, though weaker than the Arthrolex, were determined to resist the rise of the Terran influence. It was clear that the galaxy was not yet ready to accept the vision Marcus Kane had for the future. Even so, the Terran coalition continued to grow. The alliance expanded as more planets joined the cause, eager to avoid the chaos and destruction that had once been the norm under the Arthrolex. The Terrans worked tirelessly to rebuild, to heal, and to forge a new path forward. Their ultimate evolution had not just been physical, it had been moral, spiritual, and intellectual. Humanity had learned the true meaning of power, not domination, but unity, not destruction, but creation. In the years that followed, the Terran coalition became a beacon of hope in the galaxy. They continued to offer peace to those willing to embrace it, and their influence grew, not through the sword, but through diplomacy, compassion, and innovation. As new generations of humans were born in the vast expanse of space, they carried with them the lessons of their forebears, that power, unchecked, could corrupt, that unity, above all else, was their greatest strength, and that the ultimate evolution of the Terran race was not about becoming more powerful, but about becoming more human. The galaxy, once torn apart by war and division, slowly began to heal. The Terrans had proven that humanity was capable of achieving greatness, not by conquering others, but by lifting them up. And as Marcus Kane looked to the stars, he knew that the true test of humanity's evolution was not in their ability to survive, but in their ability to build a future where all could thrive. The journey of the Terran race was far from over, but they had taken the first steps toward becoming not just the ultimate evolution of their species, but the ultimate force for good in the galaxy. The future of the galaxy was now in their hands, and they would ensure that it was a future where peace, cooperation, and compassion would reign, marking the Terrans not as conquerors, but as the architects of a new era for all sentient life.